Here we go. 3, 2, 1, go. You're both on, one's on agree, one's on slightly agree. Who? Oh, and you're on slightly disagree. Okay. Feel free to think of your main reason for being on that line. Try to make it concise as possible, like a tweet size. Really concise. Who wants to go first? Their main reason. Go ahead.
It's contextual, but it's a public space, and I think people should be allowed to do things that are not harming other people in a public space.
What I'm hearing you say is the reason tent camping should be in public spaces should be legal because people should be allowed to do anything in public spaces that doesn't harm anybody.
Yes.
That's fair?
Yes.
All right. Who goes next? I'll let you go.
I'll go.
I would say specifically in the case of homelessness, the government does not provide enough other services to make tent camping in public spaces illegal. Essentially, it's taking away the only option for a home that houseless people have. And so making it illegal without providing other sources of housing and other services would be very unethical and unfair.
Unfairness, unethical. That's why it should be illegal.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Go.
As well as compassion for people struggling and compassion for people in a less fortunate situation than ourselves.
It's compassionate. If we didn't have it, it would be unfair and unethical. What about you?
I think that creating an atmosphere where it's legal to camp in public spaces means that the government is saying that it's an acceptable just sort of standard of social being that people should be sleeping on the street. I don't think it should be enforced. I don't think that cops should be kicking people out of public spaces, but I don't think it should be legal to have human beings living on the side of the street in a camp.
Enforcement comes into this in some way. Can it be both legal, illegal, and something to enforce? Is it like a social enforcement, or what do you mean?
I don't think that cops should be tasked with moving people out of the sidewalk, moving people off of public places if they don't have anywhere else to go.
Gotcha. Okay.
Decriminalized.
Decriminalized. Okay. All right, I'm going to come back to you. You're at slightly agree. What would you need to see or learn or find out to move you that way? To make it think you should be that way for this claim?
When she talked about the government not making separate services available, I would be in way more agree if the government would make, this is in the context of homelessness, if the government would make housing available, like good housing, enough housing available for these people so that tent camping isn't automatically just homelessness. It's just some weird thing that people just want to do sometimes.
Is there a city in the world that has sufficient level of whatever people need in order to make this illegal?
What do you mean?
If what I'm hearing you say is if a government provides certain services, then it might be a good idea to make it illegal because then people have the option to go to public housing or some other things. Is there any place in the world that currently has that level of services for them if the citizens in that city wanted to make it illegal? Or maybe,
So Austin, Texas has something like this where they made homelessness illegal and they provided hotels and other kind of housing for homelessness. And I think in the case of this sentence specifically, it's more like the way to make it illegal is to say you can't be camping for more than like a day or two. If you're there for an extended amount of time, that should be illegal.
Gotcha. Okay, cool. Gotta go. Well, thank you for participating. Yeah. Alrighty. So, yeah, what's some information? I think what I'm hearing you say is, if a city had a certain services, then you would move to disagree. It depends on the level of services in a city.
Yes, that's accurate.
Alrighty. Hypothetically, if Portland got those services for the next 5 years, 10 years, and we got on a time machine and went in the future, what would the city need to look like in order to, what are some things you could see to make you move up or down 10 years in the future?
Like specifically which services would need to be provided?
Yeah, what are some of those services you think Portland should implement?
I don't know a ton about this, but I would say first, providing accessible housing that does not require inhabitants to be clean from drug use. I think that's one of the largest barriers. If someone is reliant on drugs to just make it through their day-to-day, and in order to have stable housing, they need to be clean from those drugs, that's incredibly difficult. Whereas if someone has a safe place to live, and a safe place in which they can go through the process of detoxing and getting clean from drugs, that's a lot. It's obviously never going to be an easy process, but that makes it better than as opposed to the alternative. I think generally lowering the cost of housing across the city so that affordable housing is just more of a constant for everyone. Those are just two I can think of off the top of my head.
Okay, so say we got that policy in place today, 10 years in the future, what would the city need to look like in order to think, oh, that was actually a bad idea. I should have been there now, hypothetically?
I think if affordable housing movements went really poorly, and I know there's some instances where they've turned into really unsafe places, really dangerous, violence-filled places. If that were to be the case, if the affordable housing projects were handled poorly and resulted in more harm to the communities that they were supposed to help, I would say in that case, those services should have been implemented differently.
And if we saw that they had less harm, everything was really great, you would want to go over to strongly agree? That's fair?
I would say if 10 years in the future, those services had a really positive impact, then I would actually be more willing to move towards the idea that tent camping could be made illegal, because I think that would be an acceptable step if there are appropriate services available to people who need housing.
Gotcha, cool. Be right back. Yeah, what's some hypothetical future information you would need to see just to move that way 10 years in the future?
So that would be agreeing that tent camping should be legal, like everywhere in public places.
Yeah.
Right now, living in Portland, I just see the reality that I live in, and that people are living in the street. People are living in tents on the side of the road, and because they don't have a safe, technically legal place to go, that's their only option, or the only option they feel is available to them because they're not versed in accepting social services. I think that making social services more available and making, maybe not even more available, just more accessible, increases the likelihood that people will take advantage of that. And there's not like an easy answer to this problem, but currently right now I would advocate for legal spaces where people can camp. Like a couple blocks over, there's a park block that is completely fenced off. So there's a chain link fence around the park. Nobody can use it. All around the park are people camping in tents. Which is ridiculous. Like nobody's allowed it. Nobody can get into the park because there's a chain link fence around it. It's a public space. There's no reason those people shouldn't be in the park instead of taking up the sidewalk space and making the road unsafe.
Gotcha. If we revise this claim to tent camping in public spaces should be legal indefinitely for as long as people wanted to tent camp, would you be on the same spot or different?
Like legal in terms of they're receiving the same benefits that a person living in a house would? Are they like, because even if it's legal for them to be in a tent on the side of the road, they're not full citizens. They don't have an address. They're not seen as fully people and fully members of our community by the establishment. So, like, do they get an address? Can they vote? Okay. Like,
yeah, there's lots of benefits people can have when they have an address that allows them to be more into the community and everything, society. Okay. Any question that I should ask to just think more about this question, this claim? No? Anything else we should discuss? All right. Any feedback for the game? How did you like it?
I like the game. Earlier, he had us switch places, which I thought was an interesting.
Oh, that's right.
I thought that was just an interesting format. But yeah, no, I like the game. It's fun.
Any feedback?
I also like the game. I think it's a fascinating thing to do. I'd love to see it done with more topics.
Thanks for
Thank you so
helping us
much.
make the topic.
Yep, thank you. Happy to help.
Appreciate it. Have a great day.